Alright, so hi ladies, as requested, I'm going to make a short little video on graphing piecewise functions. So before we get started, we just have to talk about some inequality symbols, right? So our less than and our greater than, these two symbols don't have lines underneath, right? So these will correlate with an open circle. Our less than or equal to and our greater than or equal to will correlate with a circle that is filled in. And I kind of let you guys draw a circle and then fill it in with lines. That's kind of my best way to remember it. So remember, line underneath, circle filled in with lines. No line underneath, no fill in. Okay? So let's look at number one. So the first steps that we kind of talked about was rewriting these lines, right? Because we know how to graph lines. We're not afraid of graphing lines. The only thing that's new here is that we're graphing so many of these all together, right? So let's go ahead, let's graph this first one. I'm going to start with the y-intercept, which is always this number in the back. And say we don't have a y-intercept, a number in the back, you would just start at 0, 0. So you would pretend it's 0, and you would just start right in the center of the graph. So here we have a -3. So I'm going to go on the y-axis, and I'm going to put a dot right on -3. Okay, so now the next thing I got to talk about is my slope, right? So here's my slope. It's -2. We talked about before, if we just had a whole number, we're just going to put 1 underneath. And we talked about the directions, right? So the top number controls if I'm going up, that's positive, and if I'm going down, which will be negative. The bottom number controls if I'm going left, which is negative, and right, which will be positive. So we have a -2 over 1. This is going to make me go down 2, so 1, 2, and over to the right 1. Down 2, over to the right 1, down 2, over to the right 1, and I'm going to continue the pattern in the opposite direction. Oh, I didn't mean to put a dot there. So let's see, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. Okay, looks good. So the next thing I need to think about is this actual piecewise situation, right? So piecewise functions limit the domain on the function in question. So first things first, what number am I talking about? I am talking about -2, and I am putting a closed circle there, and I know that because I have the inequality symbol with the line underneath. So I'm going to look at where my pink function is passing that -2 on the x-axis, and that's right here. So I'm going to put a big old closed circle there. And now what is this inequality symbol really saying here, right? It is saying x is less than or equal to -2. So where is x less than -2? If I'm looking here, the less thans are always to the left. So I am going to sketch to the left of this dot, and I'm going to erase everybody else. Okay, so let's look at our next line. So my y-intercept is up 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to put my dot. And my slope here is a -x. So what that represents is a -1. Remember, if we do not see a number in front of a variable, we always put a 1, right? This one just happens to be negative. We also know if we have whole numbers, we're just going to put a number right underneath. So my slope here is going to be down 1 to the right 1. So down 1 to the right 1, down to the right, down to the right. I'm going to continue putting my spots, and I'm going to go up as well. So I'm just going 1, 1. This looks pretty good. So let's look at our restriction now, right? So I have -2 to 3. So I have an open circle on -2 and a closed circle on 3. So I'm going to look at where this green function hits that x-axis at -2. It's right here. I'm going to put an open circle right here. And let's see, at 3, I'm going to put a closed circle. Okay, so what is this graph actually asking of us, right? The x is in between this -2 and this 3. So what is in between -2 and 3? This area right over here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to erase. Oh my gosh, cat, please leave me alone. Sorry, she's playing with her toys like right next to me. Alright, so let me erase these green dots that I don't need. Alright, so our last but not least, our y is equal to -5. So I actually really like these ones because these are actually pretty simple. I'm going to go down to where y is equal to -5. There is no slope here, right? There is no x. You don't see an x there. I don't see an x there. Therefore, I am just going to draw a line right across. Beautiful. Well, maybe yours will be nicer, but you know what I mean. Now, what symbol am I talking about? I have a greater than symbol, and this will be an open circle. So I'm going to put an open circle on 3. So there's my open circle. And we want x greater than 3. So greater than is all to the right. So remember, to the right of whatever circle you're talking about will be greater. To the left will always be less. So think about it. Left is less, right is greater. It's not an up-down situation. It's always talking about the domain which moves from left to right. Okay, so we did that first one. Let's do our second one. So I'm just going to rewrite these so we can see them as nice lines. Okay, so I got y is equal to -1. I'm going to go to -1. There's no slope here, so I will draw a line across. And the domain here, there's a closed circle on -4. So I'm going to go to -4, put a nice closed circle. And we want x less than or equal to -4. So what does that mean? Less than is always to the left. And as you can see, the numbers get more and more negative as we go to the left. That's why it's always going to be less than. So there we go. And I'm going to go ahead and erase everybody else. Okay, so now let's go ahead, let's look at this center one. I am going to start at the y-intercept, which is a +2. So I'm going to go up 2, put my dot. And now my slope is 2 over 1. So it's going to be up 2 over 1, up 2 over, up 2 over. And I'm going to continue the same pattern moving downwards. Okay, so now what do we got going on here, right? I got an open circle, I got a closed circle. So where am I going to actually put these numbers? I am going to put a open circle on -4 and a closed circle on 0. So I'm going to go ahead, I have a open circle on -4, so I'm going to follow this blue line, and I have a closed circle on 0. So there we go. So now what is this, domain here even talking about? We want when the x value is in between these two numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shade the line in between these two numbers. And I'm going to erase everybody else. Beautiful. All right, let's do our last line. Oh, cool. I got another y is equal to 3. So I'm going to go to 3. There's no slope here because there's no x value. And I'm just going to draw a line going across. Definitely draw your lines better than I'm doing. So let's look at the symbol. This will be an open circle on 0. So we got an open circle where the function is at 0. And remember, we're talking about x values, right? So this is where x is equal to 0. And now we want x to be greater than 0. So greater than 0, we said before that greater is always to the right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shade my line to be to the right. Beautiful. And I'm going to erase everybody that I don't want. Okay. So there we go. I guess I can do 1 or 2 more. So let's do 1 or 2 more. Okay, so 3 and 4, and then I'll stop. So let's see, 3, I'm just going to rewrite these lines. Oh, you are killing me, babe. Okay, here. Okay, so y-intercept here is at -2. I'm going to go down 2, put a dot. Now my slope here, what is the slope if I do not see a number in front of the variable? It's 1, and it's also over 1. The same thing with that second line, right? This will be a -1 over 1. That's good. Let's continue with this first line. So I put my y-intercept on the y-axis at -2. Then I'm going to go up 1, over 1, up, over, etc., etc. And I'm going to continue in the opposite direction. Okay, so let's look at this restriction now. This will be a closed circle just because we got a line underneath. And I'm going to put that circle on -2. So where is the domain -2? It's right here. And there's my circle. We want x less than or equal to -2. So where is less than? It's always to the left. There we go. Beautiful. Going to erase everybody else. And let's do the second one. So our y-intercept is at -3, so I'm going to go down 3. And my slope is down 1, over 1, down, over, down, over, down, over. And I'm going to continue in the opposite direction. So that's good enough because I know I'm going to be cutting soon. So at -2, we're going to be putting an open circle because there's no line underneath. So I'm going to put in open circle right here. And now we want x to be greater than -2. Where are the x values greater? They are greater to the right. So I'm going to shade to the right of this circle. And I'm going to go ahead and erase this extra spot. Okay, one more. So let's look at this. We got y is equal to -x and y is equal to 2. Okay, cool. This is one of those situations where there's no y-intercept, right? There's no number just hanging out there all alone. So because there is no y-intercept, I'm going to start at 0. Now the slope here is -1 over 1. And I'm going to just go down 1, over 1, down, over, down, over. I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of my dots in. And I'm going to continue upwards as well. And let's see. My symbol here is going to be closed just because we have a line underneath. And it's less than. So I'm going to put a closed circle on -2. And we want less than, so it's going to be going to the left. Remember, left is less than. And I'm going to go ahead and erase everybody else. Okay. Switch. Beautiful. Y is equal to 2. I love these. There's no slope here, so I'm just going to draw a line across. And now what do we got here? So we got an open circle on -2, so I'm going to put an open circle here. These can overlap. It's totally fine. And now we want x to be greater than -2. So greater is to the right. There we go, and I'm going to erase what was to the left. All right, so that is pretty much it. That's 4 nice little problems. I want you guys to remember to look over domain and range. Remember, your homework is due tomorrow. That's 3 problems on the second page of your packet. I will be checking tomorrow. I will be grading that. Make sure you have everything turned in. Remember, I always do grades on Tuesdays, and good luck.